Hello and welcome to our daily news program coming to you from Canal, Algérie. To the headlines. The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, receives the Secretary General of the Russian Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev. The President of the Republic grants the Algerian citizenship to the Algiers Archbishop Jean-Paul Vesco by virtue of a presidential decree. The Army General Sayeshin Gereha, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, receives the Secretary General of the Russian Security Council, Nikolai Patrushev, now on a visit to our country. Algeria's approach in fighting terrorism and extremism is highly appreciated by the participants in the call for the Sahel meetings, which wound up on Monday in Algiers. Good evening. Those were the major headlines. First up in our news, the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, Supreme Commander of the Armed Forces, Minister of National Defense, received on Monday the Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Nikolai Patrushev. The audience took place at the Presidency of the Republic in the presence of the Army General Chief of Staff of the People's National Army, Sayeshin Gereha, and the Principal Private Secretary of the Presidency, Abdelaziz Khalaf, as well as the President's advisor in charge of Defense and Security Affairs, Boumediene Benato. The Secretary of the Security Council of the Russian Federation, Nikolai Patrushev, was also received by the Army General Sayeshin Gereha, Chief of Staff of the People's National Army. More details with Melissa Kobash.
The audience took place in the presence of General Secretary of the National Defense Ministry, commanders of forces and that of National Gendarmerie, heads of department and central directors of the General Staff of the National People's Army and the National Defense Ministry, alongside members of the Russian delegation. The two sides discussed the status of the military cooperation between the two armies, as well as ways and means to further strengthening it, and exchange views on issues of common interest. On this occasion, the Army General delivered a keynote speech in which he welcomed Mr. Nikolai Patrushev and the delegation accompanying him.
أن أرحب بكم بمقر أركان الجيش الوطني الشعبي وكل أمال أن تكون زيارتكم مفيدة للطرفين.
He further expressed his wish for this visit to be beneficial for both parties, especially that it reflects the will of both countries to further consolidate the strategic and historic partnership that characterizes their bilateral relations, particularly in the field of military cooperation.
الثنائية وبالأخص في المجال التعاون العسكري.
Army General underlined that the efforts made by Algeria and the Russian Federation contribute to the establishment of sustainable peace and development, which are in line with the principles that help develop cooperation relations between both countries, based on mutual trust and common interest.
إنني أعتبر أن هذا المسعى الذي تتشارك فيه كل من الجزائر وفيدرالية روسيا بغية المساهمة في إرساء السلم والتنمية المستدامة في ظل احترام سيادة الدول.
For his part, Nikolai Patrushev expressed his happiness to be in Algeria and highlighted the deep historical relations between Algeria and Russia, adding that his country is working on further strengthening these relations. He also praised Algeria's pivotal role in great efforts to settle peace and stability in the region. At the end of the meeting, the two sides exchanged symbolic gifts.
The President of the Republic granted the Algerian citizenship to Algiers' Archbishop Jean-Paul Vesco by virtue of a presidential decree. Born in Lyon, France, Vesco is renowned for his tolerance and his love for Algeria. Melissa Kobash once again.
Jean-Paul Vasco, born on March 10, 1962 in the French city of Lyon, obtained a master's degree in business administration and started his career in 1994 as a lawyer in the capital Paris. After his stint, he committed to the Order of Preachers and received a degree of sacred theology at Lyon's Catholic school, and by 2001, Jean-Paul Vasco was declared a priest. He settled in the province of Tlemcen and Beni Abbas and became Vicar General of Diocese in Oran province between 2005 and 2010. In 2012, he was appointed as Oran's bishop, then had to leave Algeria to go back to Paris. After his departure, he carried out numerous initiatives for the benefit of the Algerian society. In 2021, Jean-Paul Vasco was named Algeria's Archbishop and expressed his wish to have a fully citizenship while advocating the principle of living together.
Depuis un an, je suis archevêque d'Alger.
I've been the Archbishop of Algiers for a year now. I am very happy and now very proud to receive the Algerian citizenship by the President of the Republic, because it's the country where I've been living for the past 20 years.
Parce que c'est le pays dans lequel je vis depuis 20 ans, dans lequel je vais continuer à vivre. C'est le pays dans lequel, si Dieu veut, je vais aussi mourir.
It is worth noting that his predecessor Tessier obtained as well the Algerian citizenship in 1965.
In other news, the President of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujir, received the President of the Interparliamentary Union, Duarte Pacheco, who expressed on the occasion his recognition towards the role that Algeria played in the reunification of the Palestinian factions. The President of the Interparliamentary Union, Duarte Pacheco, was equally received by the President of the National People's Assembly, Brahim Boughali. Brahim Boughali also received on Monday the head of the Parliamentary Joint Commission of the 5 Sahel member states and chairman of the Transitional National Council of Chad, Haroun Kibadi. In another story, the proceedings of the second call for the Sahel meeting wound up on Monday. The participants stressed the necessity to step up and consolidate efforts so as to fight terrorism and extremism, in addition to the definition of the indicators that can achieve prosperity for all members of society. The parliamentarians also highlighted the importance granted by the President of the Republic for the protection of the vulnerable social segments, notably women and children, against violence via the 2022 Constitution. They also put forward the importance of granting job opportunities for all citizens and the unemployment allowance to ensure a decent life for everyone, as it is the case in Algeria. This is an imperative to prevent extremist groups from taking advantage of the less privileged. The cooperation agreement was signed between the Constitutional Court and the State Council in the presence of the presidents of the two institutions, respectively Omar Belhaj and Mohammed Ben Nasser. This agreement is part of the consolidation of the links based on dialogue and complementarity between the two institutions. In a different context, Ouargla province commemorated the protests of February 27, 1962, an important milestone in Algeria's history, being a telling evidence of the radical refusal of the policy of colonial France aiming to divide the south from the rest of the national territory. This memorable date is still engraved in the memory of the inhabitants of Ouargla province, who expressed 60 years ago their willingness to preserve the territorial integrity of the country. On this occasion, the Minister of Mujahideen, Eid Rabiga, held a conference on this highly important historical day. And the 47th anniversary of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic proclamation, which coincides with the resumption of struggle in occupied territories, is marked by the announcement made by the Sahrawi ambassador to Algeria, in which he reiterated his people's staunch determination to keep fighting to get freedom and sovereignty. Najah Tayyar reports.
On the anniversary of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic proclamation on February 27th, the Sahrawi people, young and old, commemorate this event to remember the great challenges faced after the withdrawal of the Spaniards following the signing of the Madrid Accord in 1975. The challenges that were the consequences of the Sahrawi territories' invasions by the Mercenaries forces in October of the same year. Still wounded and weakened, the Sahrawi people had no choice but to struggle against this new invasion, which continues to this day, making the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic the last colony in Africa. 47 long years of struggle and resistance denoted the great determination of the Sahrawi people to foil all the attempts of the Moroccan occupier aiming at legitimizing their occupation, thus revealing the true face of Morocco, a corrupt regime with an expansionist policy. The Sahrawi Republic has made remarkable achievements at the internal and external, the diplomatic and the political levels, and more than 80 governments recognize the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and maintain diplomatic relations with the country. Its status has been reinforced through the European Union Court of Justice resolution of September 2021, which confirmed the international legal character of the Polisario Front to plead before the European legal entities. The other important breakthrough is the decision of the African Court on Human and People's Rights in 2022, which denounced the Moroccan occupation by calling on African countries and peoples to show solidarity with the Sahrawi people. The world is today more than ever convinced that it is impossible to ignore the Sahrawi people's will for freedom and independence, and that respect for their will is the key to a just and lasting peace in the region.
Moving on to Palestine, where a young man was killed and dozens injured during a series of attacks carried out by the Zionist settlers in Nablus and the north of the West Bank. 3 other young people were injured by bullets and other dozens were asphyxiated with tear gas after being targeted by the Zionist occupation forces during peaceful demonstrations in the east of the Gaza Strip. And to wrap up our today's news with a culture and photo exhibition organized by Farida Farrai and Aranya Aradi, these 2 retired teachers who turned to photography and got inspired by the kasbahs of the country. Story by Najah Tayyar.
After a long and successful career in the education field, Farida Farrai and Aranya Aradi decided to dedicate their photography talent to sharing the spirit, the beauty, and the history of the old Kasbah cities. I retired and started living my photography dream. I took lessons and trained with my friends. We also traveled to Algiers Kasbah, to the east, to the west, and also to the south. Through these trips, we could take photos that capture many of Algeria's wonders. Is the motto of the exhibition of 32 photographs. All display the history and the beauty of these cities, such as Qsibat Shershel, Miliana, Dilis, Gherdaya, Biskra, and Mila, and many other historical cities. We put 3 exclamation marks after the Kasbah to express the great number of Kasbah cities in Algeria. In one of our trips in Algiers Kasbah, we decided to photograph the most Kasbah cities in Algeria that each has a different architecture. On the sidelines of the exhibition, the artists offer workshops of coloring and drawing to children. Worth to be mentioned for photography lovers that the exhibition goes on till March 8th.
And with these beautiful photographs, we come to the end of our today's program. Thank you for tuning in and goodbye.